Some technical stuff. All right. Okay, Maya. So first of all, thank you again. I said it before, but I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And so we're going to mainly focus on EL. I know there's another curriculum that you're familiar with, it's kind of similar to Wit and Wisdom, but let's just focus on EL because in your role, um, you're seeing people actually implementing EL. First of all, what is your role?
Yeah, so I'm the director of elementary academics at Lighthouse Community Public Schools.
Okay. And you guys are using EL as your core instructional program for English language arts. And I'm wondering, based on what you've seen so far, what would you say the teachers like about it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest positive pieces of feedback that we receive is around EL being really content driven. So the modules that come with EL are really comprehensive and tackle like every angle of a given topic. So you'll get a nonfiction text on a topic, you'll get a fictional text on a topic, you will get, videos, different sort of kids will have at bats with writing, like everything feels really cohesive. I think coming out of the Common Core movement, we've really in ELA focused on skills-based learning. So can kids identify the main idea? Can they identify the theme? Do they understand the text feature? And I think what EL does really well is it acknowledges the skills, but really doesn't forget about the content, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, what are some things that you've observed or heard from teachers that they may not like about it?
I wouldn't say this would be something that teachers don't like. I would say that something that teachers find challenging, or is like the thing that we work on when we support our teachers, is the EL approach is really, it's a school model, not just a curriculum. And so there's a lot of things that come with it. So there's the way we call, like in past organizations I've been in, we have like advisory for students, right? They have crew. So there's just like, some aspects of close reading are called different things. Like language dives is one aspect of close reading that like looks or like is called something different in EL. So EL is really, it's not as much of a plug and play curriculum as some of the other curriculums that are trending right now. You have to really deeply understand it, understand the long-term goal of the curriculum, and then understand how to internalize the curriculum as it comes. EL has a trillion resources. Like you go on that website and there are read alouds, there are, like anything a teacher needs is there, down to like a scripted level for each lesson. But when you are a brand new teacher, no one's like, so often we prepare our teachers to plan, but we don't necessarily prepare them to internalize. And because it's almost like learning a new language, and that can feel challenging for our teachers.
There's actually two different providers or publishers for EL. There's LearnZillion, which has the slides and things, and then there's Open Up Resources, which is more of a like brick and mortar hard copy type stuff. You all use which one?
We use the traditional EL curriculum from like the EL platform. We take it, so right now we're using the EL Flex curriculum, which is the 2020 release of a 3-module approach versus a 4-module approach given distance learning. So we're taking straight from the EL platform. We do use Open Up Resources for a few different things. We use it in middle school, specifically for math. We use Open Up. We do have some Open Up resources for like supplementary EL components. And I know LearnZillion as well, we use with our Eureka. No, that's Zern, sorry, cut that out.
That's cool. So you mentioned about kind of like the planning and like putting things together and the different, like the way that people need to prepare to really implement EL well. What kind of professional development, what kind of support do you guys have in place? I know you guys are, what do they call that? Like an EL network school or something like that. Like you guys are one of the, are getting professional development at a higher level. I'm not sure how to describe it, but what's the professional development plan that you guys have for teachers?
So there are a couple things. We partner directly with EL to do, and so our principals work directly with their school designers, is what their title is, to strategically plan professional learning. I also meet with, I'm not sure his title, but with another like overall designer to think about our network of our family of schools, so multiple campuses. And with that, we're really zooming in on content specific PD. So what does the data tell us we need around teachers understanding how to tackle like phases of closed reading would be an example. And that's been super helpful. We also do a school-based PD scope and sequence, but what I think is really important, and I want to like emphasize here, is we actually not only do we do like the whole group professional learning like PD for teachers, but we're rolling out instructional cycles, which is essentially our coaches and our principals and myself as well, doing one-on-ones with teacher to internalize one lesson. So rather than thinking about how are we developing teachers understand the scope of the year, which is really important, and of course something that we do, we're actually zooming in on a monthly basis with a teacher, and we're internalizing a lesson with them, coach, one-on-one coach to teacher. Then we're observing that same lesson in action, and then we're debriefing it and looking at the data for that same lesson. So we follow the life of a lesson from beginning to end, and that's been received really well by teachers. Just like unpacking a really dense curriculum and being able to dissect it and adapt it to the needs of our students has been really powerful on the lesson level.
When you say it's really dense, what do you mean?
So like a given lesson could be like 10 pages and has like 7 different script, like it's just very script. It's beautiful and it's been vetted, and we're grateful to have such rich resources, but it's not you know, the lesson plans of the past. I'm like gonna age myself. When I had like my cover page, I was like, here's my learning target, here's my standard, and here are like the I do, we do, you do. Like that is not this curriculum.
Got it. So it's a little bit more just built
It's
out.
complex. It's
yeah.
complex. Yeah, in a really good way, in a really thoughtful way, but in a way that we need to support our teachers and to be able to access it.
So if you've got those kind of support, so then what would the conditions of success be? Like what, so the supports, so they have, I'm assuming the principals there, right? They have the principal for support. I don't know if they have grade level chairs, they have you for support.
Mm-hmm.
They have the EL education PD, or, you know, the support from them and being part of that network. So it's quite a bit of support you guys have. And
yep.
Have you heard from teachers in terms of to really do it well, to do all the pieces? What's the planning like for them in terms of time commitment? Like what should they know? What should they expect teachers to be willing to do and able to do the program well in terms of planning?
Mm-hmm. That's a tricky question because I think it varies by grade and by teacher experience and by teacher experience with a given grade. So if a teacher is teaching second grade for the second time, the planning is cut down. EL, because it's so robust, gives a lot of space for adding culturally responsive components, whether it's like different texts that are more, you know, aligned to the community we serve, like all these things. Like there's a lot of space and encouragement around making the curriculum your own, but that does take time. Would I say it's more planning time than a traditional curriculum? No. Would I say it's different? Yes. So it's like taking what's already there and making it your own, or adjusting for the needs of your students in your classroom, looking at data, getting really, really specific, rather than like sitting down to a blank Word document and being like, I'm gonna plan my lesson for tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that Oakland Unified is really focusing on, well, foundational skills in general. For years and years, we just didn't teach foundational skills at the level that we needed to. And so now we're looking for ways to adjust for that. We use SIPs, and then now looking for core curriculum. We're trying to find something that has a very like robust, comprehensive skills block, or supplement it with another program. But do you all use the EL skills block, or do you supplement it with something else?
We do use the EL skills block.
Okay, and how, like, what's been the response to that? I know that, you know, you started in September, and so you've seen it in a distance learning format, but are you hearing feedback from teachers about how kids, or seeing yourself, how kids are responding, developing their foundational skills using their skills block from EL?
I want to start by naming that like everyone needs to know that teaching kindergarten skills block via Zoom is the hardest thing ever. Like we just need to name that, like, and that's not an excuse, and that's not you know, I'm not trying to downplay anything else, but I just want, like, teaching skills block through a screen is completely different than teaching, you know, a kindergartner in person how to decode a word, how to point to a letter. There's just a lot of components that are really tricky. I will say that our teachers have responded really well to the skills blocks. The piece that's challenging is or I wouldn't say challenging. As an organization, we're still working on norming on what the assessment components of benchmarks look like and how we're tracking that and what we're doing with that data. But as far as the actual block itself and the materials that are provided, our teachers have been really receptive and really like it.
Okay.
I think the most important thing about teaching a phonics curriculum is teaching the same curriculum with consistency, right? Like, there's a science to it. There's a lot, like, the jury's still out on a lot of the, like, reading comprehension things that happen after kids learn how to actually read a text, you know, like, but as far as, like, science literacy at the early age, like, we know that having a structured, intentional skills block is what's going to drive student achievement.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned it's different for different teachers and, like, their amount of experience and maybe probably even the school environment. I don't know, but it varies. So I'm wondering, like, who would you like? What's the ideal condition for this? Like, you know, because Lighthouse has 2 elementary schools. You've got Lodestar and you've got Lighthouse. So I'm mostly looking at the elementaries. I'm not really looking at the middle schools. And they're a little bit different. They're a little bit different. Oakland Unified has got even more variance. I mean, we've got schools, you know, like, economically different, ethnically different, you name it. And so I'm wondering, what would the ideal environment, or what are the conditions for success that you've identified or that you can point to, if any, that you think would make it a school ideal for adopting this type of?
For adopting the EL curriculum or the
Yeah,
skills block?
the
Well, I guess
EL
they're not the
curriculum
same.
overall, including the skill block.
Yep. That's a great question.
Why,
I think there's a really important piece here. There's 2 things that I'm thinking about, and they're not, I mean, they are directly related to curriculum. One is teacher development and support on a consistent basis. So I think with adoption of any curriculum, especially EL, we also need to adopt a really clear and coherent and consistent coaching model. So teachers know what support they're getting on a regular basis. They have their, like, routines to which we internalize a curriculum, we you know, adapt a curriculum, we do all these things with our teachers. So that to me is really important. We can't just, like, hand teachers the EL module and be like, go. Like, that's just not how really any curriculum works. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I think, because EL is so content rich, and there's so many ways in which we can explore themes and topics which are provided within these really robust modules, and make them our own and make them really responsive to our students, and really, like, look at the curriculum with a critical eye and make sure it's anti-racist, and make sure that that we are putting the right text in front of our kids. Like, all of these things, right, comes with understanding the curriculum really deeply. And so to me, it's like teacher retention. And I know it's, like, feels really unrelated, but to me, if a teacher can teach the same grade and the same curriculum 2 years in a row, that's how they adapt, and that's how they build out the curriculum to make it even more and more successful year in, year out.
Yeah, that's not unrelated. So literally, there are some schools that have very low teacher turnover for whatever reason, and they've had very stable staffs, and they're able to kind of build on the professional learning that they get year after year. They even bring the parents, into it. And then there's others that experience consistently high teacher turnover for whatever reason. And in trying to pick something that will work for everybody, or maybe pick more than one option so that people have something to choose from that fits their context the best. It's just important to get all that stuff on the table so that, when people are thinking about, should we pilot this? Should we use this district-wide? That they know, like, what the parameters are and what the context is. So no, it's not unrelated at all.
I will also say that the more, like, teachers stay when they feel successful in a curriculum and when they feel like they're successfully teaching kids, right? Like everyone goes into this profession to like see success in their kids and to see students grow and learn and, you know, progress their lives. Like that's like the secret sauce that gets you up in the morning. And that comes from teaching well. And so often teachers don't have the support that they need in a given situation. And therefore they don't feel bad. Like the secret sauce is not there. It's really hard to be a teacher when things aren't working. Right. So I say teacher development and that's like the most important thing paired with that I believe will lead to teacher retention.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure I've gone through all my questions, but I'm sure I probably missed something. Is there anything that you have, if you could send a message to the selection committee, you're talking about 25 people, teachers, coaches, different roles who huddle together, well, they Zoom together now and try to figure this thing out. When they're going through their list, and they've got wit and wisdom, they've got what else? CKLA, they've got EL education, they've got bookworms, they've got a bunch of different curricular choices. From where you sit, what would you want them to know about EL? And also, you've experienced curricular kind of close to wit and wisdom, not exactly the same, but kind of close. So if you could say something to them, what would you offer them in terms of your perspective?
So I think EL is a comprehensive approach to whole group instruction for a literacy, ELA, humanities, whatever you want to call it, block, right? Like it covers all of its bases and gives kids exposure to really like interesting ideas, lets them write about a text, read about nonfiction. Like I just worked at the second grade unit on like it's a fossils unit, and they read a story about, you know, finding bones in second grade, and then they learned about how to be paleontologists, and the kids were like all in 110%, like even via Zoom, second grade, like they're paleontologists, and like it's so powerful and it is so exciting and it's so engaging. So I would want, like, that is why I would advocate for that curriculum specifically, is because it's like there's so much there that is so enriching for kids and goes beyond just like teaching skills and literacy. What I will say, and one thing that I really appreciate about Wit and Wisdom, or completely is what I've been more familiar with, is focus on like text. Like 70% of class in a Wit and Wisdom class is kids engaged in text. So it's really like text forward. I would say EL is more theme topic forward, where they're doing a lot of reading, but they're also watching videos, and they're also, you know, having discussions, and they're also writing. I think if adopting EL, and this is something that I'm thinking about in the schools that I work with right now, what is the additional, especially for early literacy, what are the additional supports we're having to make sure kids have a lot of time in text? So what that means is like an independent reading block that's structured, or I don't personally agree with guided reading as an approach. I think, you know, that's a whole other conversation that we can have at another time, but like some sort of like small group instruction. We know that kids will move and be successful if, when I say move, they'll academic achievement will progress when they're reading on grade level complex text. But we also know that many of our students in the Oakland area are not reading on grade level. And so what are the other supports? I don't want to call it I don't like the word intervention. I like the word like acceleration. Like, how are we accelerating the kids that are not reading on grade level to get to grade level, in addition to a really robust whole group curriculum such as EL? So that would be like what I would share, is that I think we need to be intentional about putting text forward, but also maintain this like really rich, exciting, fun curriculum that I think EL provides.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard about EL is that it has kind of a social justice lean to it, or at least like a being aware of the world and your surroundings, infused in the different modules. And, you know, that's exciting to people. The idea that you can make people or help kids develop their sense of social consciousness and awareness. You know, Oakland is like known for that historically. And so there's really a lot of energy behind that. And at the same time, try to balance that with making sure kids have the skills they need to be able to engage with the content, and especially for kids that may come in lower. So one of the things about adopting curriculum K-5 is that it's not static. is that it's static as opposed to something like a core knowledge where you would likely adopt it 1 year at a time. This is something where you're like adopting it all at once. And the question is, what about kids who are, 2 or 3 grade levels behind, coming in, and now they're a fourth grader, for example, and they're reading at a first grade level or
Yeah.
kindergarten level. Like, some programs embed supports into the core curriculum. They embed for ELLs, for kids who have IEPs, for kids who might have dyslexia, like that type of stuff is embedded in there. And then there's always the tier 2 stuff, whether it's SIPs or something else. But core instruction, it's just some programs do a better job than others of really making sure that those students' needs are met on a daily basis.
Mhm.
I'm wondering about EL as far as you've seen. Like, does it support English language learners? Does it support kids with IEPs, kids who, are behind academically? Are those embedded in, or do they have to wait until the intervention block or, whatever to get the supports that they need?
That's a great question. I would say it does do a well to your first point around the social justice lean of the curriculum. This is something that I really love about EL, and I feel like I haven't actually named that as much as I should have in our conversations. But like, there is a prioritization of student voice in the curriculum, which is very so important and really like social justice leaning and ideas. And what I love about it is that, like, I know an idea around like advocacy, for example, that's addressed in 3rd grade will also be addressed in 5th grade, right? Like, so it's like it's continuous and it builds upon itself year after year in a really beautiful way. I also like, again, EL is so built out. You can go onto the website and there's like a whole page for ELLs, like English language learner supports or special education needs. And I absolutely think that it is a curriculum because it prioritizes student voice and differentiation. It gives space and time to adapt to student needs. And when you have a curriculum provided for you, the teacher's think space is not on what text am I going to teach tomorrow or how am I going to plan this lesson. The teacher's think space is on how can I differentiate for X student or Y student given their specific needs. Like, that's how they're spending their energy. So it, like, because there's so much provided, it allows space for that differentiation. I will say though, again, that the one thing that will move kids in early literacy, I'll go on record saying it, is volume of text. Like, kids just need to read all the time. And so I love EL and I support it. I think that EL plus a structured block, 30 minutes, 45 minutes of some other form of text immersion is incredibly important for regardless of any curriculum. Like, regardless of like if wit and wisdom or completely, like, kids need to be reading, and that's what's gonna move the needle, if you want to say.
Yeah, a lot of programs is interesting. Kids can go the whole year and never read an actual book, like a real book, never actually hold a book in their hand. And it's just like, wait a second, we just went through this entire module, but they never, they never actually read a book.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. It's like for some reason, I think in like the push for data growth and all the things, like we teach and we talk a lot about reading, but we don't necessarily like the lesson is talking about reading, but not actually like reading. I don't know if that makes sense.
I got you.
So, yeah. That to me, I think EL does a good job of a text balance. I will say again, like that there just needs to be more volume of text in other spaces in the school day.
That's one of the things that we found with Ed Reports. They actually, like, there are some curricula that use actual books, and they just don't know how to handle it. It's like, oh, well, how are they going to build knowledge? How are they going to do this? Wait a second. No, we actually want kids reading books, and you gotta adjust your algorithm because people are saying just what you just said, which is actually reading is important. I'm not saying you just shuffle them off and have them read independently all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But through your lesson, through direct instruction, shared reading, or whatever it is, like, you got to have some books in there the kids can navigate at a text level that's complex enough so that they're actually getting used to the struggle of, anyway. So anyway, Maya, thank you so much.
I agree with you.
I really, really appreciate this. As a matter of fact, let me stop recording. This was